Usually I talk about Japan, but today, instead of just talking about Japan, I want to take you inside Japan. Did you know Japan has over 80,000 Shinto shrines and more than 70,000 Buddhist temples? 87 million people say they believe in Shinto, and 84 million people believe in Buddhism. These sacred places hold centuries of secrets, mysticism, and are full of history and culture. From beautiful architecture inside stunning nature to massive buildings, you're about to discover why these sites are the beating heart of Japan's soul. A more different cinematic way. Headphones recommended. Japan is a land of stunning contrasts. Modern skyscrapers, ancient traditions, and city life intersects with spiritual calm. But there's one thing that stays constant: the influence of temples and shrines in shaping the culture. The culture that reaches back hundreds of years into Japan's history. Shrines are said to be developed in the year 478, while temples shortly after followed in the year 588. Today, we're going to dive into the fascinating world of these sacred places, uncovering their unique purpose, the traditions behind them, and unique elements about them. Whether you're interested in the culture behind the language, into Japanese culture in general, or just interested in Japanese culture as a traveler, or just curious, get your insight into a spiritual journey through Japan's hidden mysteries. But before we start, let me clear up a common misconception. Temples and shrines are not the same thing. While both are sacred, their origins, architecture, and purpose are vastly different. Shrines are places of Shinto worship, which is the indigenous spirituality of Japan. You recognize them by their iconic torii gates, those red or orange gateways that mark the transition from the mundane to the sacred. Shintoism doesn't have a founder or sacred scriptures. It's all about revering kami, the spirits of nature, animals, and ancestors. Shrines are where you go to honor these spirits, to pray for blessings, health, or prosperity. According to ancient myths, there was nothing in the beginning, just the vast sea, until Izanagi and Izanami thrusted a spear into the ocean. And that's how the first land, Japan, was formed. The child of Izanagi and Izanami, which became the sun goddess Amaterasu, is believed to be the most ancient ancestor of the Tenno. On the other hand, temples are Buddhist. The center of Buddhist worship, where you'll often find statues of Buddha, prayer beds, and incense. Buddhism arrived in Japan from China and Korea in the 6th century, and temples became places to meditate, study the teachings of Buddha, and perform rituals for spiritual enlightenment. So to kind of understand what shrines are and what the Shinto religion also means that is connected to those shrines, I want to go over three main points to kind of give you a general feeling of what this really is. So basically, Shinto, the religion behind the shrines, is a polytheism religion. So that means there's not one god that will be worshipped, there are many gods, even kind of endless gods. So as I said, with polytheism, it is a religion with many nearly endless gods. But which kind of categories do you have? So basically there's one category of like mythological figures that came up from stories or were just invented by some people. And on the other hand, it can also be nature objects. So for example, it can be a tree, like in this picture here. It can be a river, for example. It can be a waterfall. Even a more general thing, like rain or fire in general, can also be a kami. Because in Shintoism you believe that everything in the world has kind of a tamashi, so a soul. So in this way also nature objects can kind of be gods. Also, if you watched films from Miyazaki like Spirited Away, for example, you can see that the river, in this case that I mentioned before, was also god in this movie. Also, animals, for example, count to nature objects and also can be a god. So in this case, you saw the duck, for example, in the movie too. So you can see nearly everything can turn into a kami. And of course, not just nature objects or mythological figures, and also humans can turn into gods. So basically, certain historical figures can be enshrined, be inside the shrine. I will tell you what this means later on too. And one figure of this, for example, is Tokugawa Ieyasu. If you don't know who Tokugawa Ieyasu is, he was a shogun and he basically created the Tokugawa shogunate. Basically, this was a time in Japan where the Edo period started. So in other words, where Japan was just shut off from the world. And he became a pretty important figure because he really created a new era kind of under his name. So that's maybe why he also got enshrined inside a shrine. So the next thing I want to talk about, because now you know what Shinto is, now it's easier to understand what shrines are. And basically, I didn't really explain that much what shrines are. So basically, a shrine is the place where you enter to kind of visit the kami that is enshrined inside this place. And basically, the entrance of this shrine, as I told you in the beginning, is always marked by those torii gates, those big red gates. And maybe just a fun little story, because when I went to Japan, I always entered the shrine when I was in the middle of the main path. And with time, I kind of understood that when you enter a shrine, usually you're not allowed to enter in the middle of the main path. You have to either walk left or right in the path, because the kami, or it is said that the god, is walking in the middle, so you shouldn't block his way. That's why usually when people enter the shrine too, you need to be on the left or on the right, for example. Yeah, maybe that's a thing to consider, just a funny side story. But anyway, after you enter the torii gate, usually people will bow in front to kind of show their respect for this place. And then you can go to a place that is usually right next to the entrance on the left or on the right. And it is called the Temizu-ya. So basically te as hand and mizu as water and ya as kind of place or hut. So you go there, and usually before entering, you kind of try to cleanse yourself. And you do it by washing your hands with water, and you also do it by putting some water inside your mouth and then spitting it out too. And that is also a really important ritual in shrines that I will also go on in the later part of the video. And now we come to the place that you were waiting for, and that is basically called the Heiden. So after you enter through the torii gate and cleansed yourself, you are, let's say, applicable, or you are allowed to go closer to the god. So like I told you in the beginning, there can be many objects that can turn into kami, and some of those kami get enshrined inside the shrine. And usually that god is inside the Heiden. So the place where you stand and throw some 100 yen coin, for example, and then pray for something. And usually people will pray there for everything. If you want someone to get more healthy, or if you want to get more healthy yourself, if you want to earn more money, or if you want to better work, you can pray for nearly everything. And that is basically the procedure. If you also want me to make a video on these kind of procedures inside shrines, you can just type it down in the comments. Now we come to the third part, because I think it's also kind of a central thing when it comes to shrines, and maybe a cool thing. And it is called omamori. And O is kind of a honorific prefix, and mamori means to guard or to defend. And in this case, it is kind of some accessory that you can buy at any shrine. And usually depending on the shrine, it will have a different design, and it also has a different kind of purpose. So you can buy an omamori, for example, to, let's say, defend you from having some car accident, or you can have an omamori, for example, to help you to get a child. When you're a woman, for example, and want to get pregnant, you can get an omamori so your business will work good. And that is a moment that I was waiting for the whole video. So I want to kind of show you the omamori I got, for you to also have a nicer image. So give me 1 second. So I have this kind of bag of omamori, and I will kind of open it and like just show you some omamori that I found, to kind of give you a, let's say, interesting insight. So basically this omamori here, I don't know if you can see it. No, it's focusing on me. So yeah, this one, you can see it has kind of like a brush on it, So this is like an omamori that I bought in Japan at Atami, I think. And it is there to kind of, let's say, make your studies go well. So if you have an exam that you will pass it and so on. Then that is also like a funny omamori here. Like this. And you can see there's a world on it that I saw. And basically it says Ryoko Ansen Mamori. So it's basically for people, if you go abroad to travel, then it will kind of defend you. Another thing that I got, this one I got, for example, at Chiba. And you can see that it is from Narita-san. So it was from the Narita-san temple at Chiba. And basically this is so your business will go well or you make money. So I usually always have it on my camera. And you can see they're like really endless omamori for everything. I also found one from Mononoke, if you can see here. And this is my favorite one. I don't know it's much about omamori, but you have to take a look. It has the kanji for katsu, or the ka from katsu. I bought it in Enoshima, as you can see here too. And basically this omamori is that you kind of, well, kachi means to win. And so, yeah, that some challenge you have, you will overcome it and win it and so on. And basically it's the same kanji that my name would be written in Japanese, so I don't know, I kind of like this one too. So you can see they're really like endless omamori here, and I have really too many. And there's one thing that you have to consider in case of Shinto, at least at a set like this. Basically, if you buy an omamori, it will kind of just be valid for 1 year. So if the year goes over, you actually need to throw them away. And in other words, if you don't throw it away, it will give you bad luck. But I don't know, I got so many beautiful omamori, so I don't want to throw them away. But according to Japanese kind of religion or culture, in 2025, this bag of omamori will give me bad luck. So if there's no more videos coming out, then you maybe know why. So, because we already talked about what shrines are or what Shintoism is, let's also talk about what temples are, or basically what Buddhism is. Basically, to go too much into detail, I think it wouldn't interest you that much. So let me just talk about Zen, because I think everyone that kind of already heard something about Japan, they will also know what Zen is. So basically, Zen Buddhism is a kind of direction of Buddhism. It's something that was created in Japan. And basically it has, let's say, two important things. And the first thing is called Zazen. It is basically sitting and meditating. So meditation plays a big part of that Buddhist direction. As you can see when you go to temples, if you're lucky, you will maybe encounter some Buddhist priests too, like chanting and praying, for example. And usually they're, let's say, what they want to achieve is they want to achieve Satori. So it is the path of enlightenment. So usually by meditating over and over and over again, you can get enlightened. And basically a small story also, when I went to Karuizawa, it is like 1 or 2 hours away from Tokyo, I think. I went on a mountain, and there was like a, kind of a big rock with like volcano with like an ex-volcano, and basically there was a temple built on top of this volcano. Imagine building your house on top of a volcano. But anyway, I went there and I had a small chat with the priest there, and she told me, for example, that they usually a temple, for example, it's not just one temple. Maybe in Japan, this kind of group from this temple, they have like 5 temples around Japan. So this kind of temple, they also had a temple inside Tokyo. And usually when the priests wanted to get some time to, like, let's say, pray or to kind of have some time to meditate, they took the way from Tokyo. Of course, they were meditating there too, but sometimes they took the way from Tokyo to Karuizawa, to this temple on this mountain to kind of pray. Because I don't know, it was really, really silent. I think it is really the perfect place to meditate, but that's maybe an interesting fact too. And another thing, if you maybe like meditating, you can also take a like meditation course. So some temples offer for you, for example, to take some time off, to take some break and go there and get like a meditation week where you will learn about like Buddhist customs and where you will kind of learn about like Buddhist philosophy and so on, and kind of try meditation and so on. So I think it's really nice to really get inside these kind of places. And another thing about Buddhism is also there's like some kind of pilgrimage. So you can like visit many temples, and there's a really famous one. I think it was called, let me take a look, Shikoku pilgrimage. And basically it's like a path you can walk, or many paths, and you walk from temple to temple, for example. And around, it's about 88 temples, I think. So it's a pretty long path, but many, or not many, but some Japanese people that are really interested in Buddhism, they also do this kind of pilgrimage, similar to what like Europeans did before when they went to Rome, for example, for their pilgrimage. But in Japan, you just have those 88 temples that you will visit. So maybe a cool vacation idea too, if you're interested. And now we come to one fact that maybe not everyone knows about Japan, and that is basically that the Japanese tea ceremony, like the traditional tea ceremony, has their roots inside Buddhism. So for example, in Buddhism, it is really important to be like mindful, to kind of collect your thoughts, to be patient. And that is something that also when you're drinking tea, or when you already had the tea ceremony, or when you just take a look at the video of a tea ceremony, you kind of feel that this thinking is also inside this tea ceremony. Actually, it is an art that embodies kind of mindfulness. Now that you know the difference between shrines and temples and kind of how they work, let's talk about ritual differences, because that's where things get really interesting. Both temples and shrines host unique ceremonies, but the customs are fascinatingly different. For example, at Shinto shrines, one of the most powerful rituals is purification. As I told you before you even step inside, you often see a temizuya, a water basin where you rinse your hands and mouth to purify yourself. It's all about entering the sacred space with a clear mind and body. And for example, it's not just about the temizuya. There are kind of some traditional ceremonies that also enable you to, let's say, purify your car when you buy one, so you don't get into car accidents. Or for example, when you move inside a new home, you can get a ceremony that will get it purified, for example. Also, when you go to the shrine, there's the omikuji. It's kind of a fortune telling paper that you pull from a box. Some people even tie their bad fortunes to a tree, hoping to leave the bad luck behind. Or you can get an omamori, like I showcased you before, to assist you on the way and to give you luck. But at Buddhist temples, for example, things take a more meditative turn. Monks perform incensive offerings and chanting to purify the temple and its visitors. One of the most important ceremonies is obon, for example, when families honor the spirits of their ancestors. It's a beautiful, deeply emotional celebration of life and death. In Japan, you believe that the ancestors will return to the world during this time. So you can see, temples and shrines in Japan aren't just places of worship. They're time capsules of culture, spirituality and history. Whether you're there to meditate, to explore, or to connect with something bigger than yourself, these sacred spaces offer an experience like no other. If you ever find yourself in Japan, don't just visit these places, immerse yourself in their peacefulness. And because there's a recent misconception about temples and shrines, because for many people it seems that they're more kind of some places to visit, like you visit the Skytree, for example, or the Tokyo Tower. But you really have to keep in mind that those are religious places, and I also kind of want to remind you to respect them the same as you would respect the church, for example, and to treat the places with respect and dignity when you enter them, because it's not just something that is good for the people around you and the places you visit. There's also something, like I told you before, to immerse yourself in their peacefulness. And in this case, I can really recommend you to shut off your phone one time. Don't think about social media or showing someone a picture of something. Really, one time, and I can really recommend this because you saw I visited really many shrines and temples. Just go inside there and try to really read the atmosphere, feel how this place is, and I can guarantee you that even if you're like me and you don't really believe in some certain religion or a certain god, you can still feel that these places have some kind of aura that can be really calming for you. And I'm really certain that this can be a nice experience for someone going to Japan. And as always, thank you for listening, have a great day, また今度よろしくね。